I'm Adam Ragusia, and here's how I failed this week. I forgot to hit record. I was filming a recipe for cinnamon rolls, and baking recipes are typically pretty easy to shoot, or at least they are not very stressful to shoot because they move so slowly. They're hard to shoot because it's hard to expose for flour. Flour is too bright for cameras, and I'm not the only food YouTuber to report that problem, but at least baking recipes move slowly, which gives you lots of time to set up your shots and to deal with problems, like the flour being too reflective. Everything was going swimmingly with the cinnamon rolls. I mixed the pre-ferment dough, I let it rise, I mixed the rest of the dough together and let that rise for a couple of hours. I went and did my workout while I was waiting, and everything was on schedule for me to finish the rolls around 2:15, thus giving me just enough time to walk down and pick up the older kid from school. I pulled the fully risen dough out, I rolled it thin, and right when I was about to smear it with melted butter, I had to do a battery swap on the camera. So I stopped recording, put in the new battery, set up the shot again, smeared on the butter, scattered on the cinnamon sugar filling, and that's when I realized I never resumed recording after the battery swap. This has happened to me before. I don't know why I just phrased that passively, as though someone else is doing it to me. That's not true. I do this to myself. I forget to hit record sometimes. And sometimes that's fine because I can just hit record and do it again, whatever it was. But with the cinnamon rolls, I had missed an irreversible step. There was no way for me to scrape the filling off of the dough so that I could put it back on again. I know that because I tried. I couldn't just do it again on another dough because I did not have another dough. It had taken me almost 4 hours to make that dough, including the fermentation time. So I had a total come apart where I might have thrown a chair. I didn't throw a chair. I put it down very hard. And Lauren came in and asked me what's wrong, and I told her, and she said, "It's okay." And I said, "It's not okay." And she said, "Well, it has to be." And I said, "Don't yell at me for being upset." And I didn't actually say that. I yelled that, much louder than she had yelled the first thing. And that was probably my biggest failure that day. With the second biggest being that I forgot to hit record when I smeared on the butter. I concluded my little come apart. I resumed filling the rolls. I rolled them, I cut them, got them in the oven, and while they baked, I started getting a second dough going. I shot the rolls coming out of the oven, I shot the icing, all of that, done. And then, hours later, just as I was losing the natural light in the kitchen for the day, my second dough had fully risen. I rolled it out. The shape and surface texture of it was noticeably different from the first dough, which you can see in the video if you look closely. And when I'm smearing the butter on the dough in the video, that is the stand-in dough. That is the dough from 4 hours later. That is the stunt dough, filling in for the crucial shot for which I forgot to hit record. And Lauren said she was sorry she yelled at me, and I said I was sorry I yelled at her because we're pretty good at saying sorry these days, as long as she says it first. And I turned 40 this week. Thanks to everybody who said something nice about that. This episode 2 of the Adam Ragusia podcast is sponsored by Monk Pack. Monk Pack makes these shockingly delicious, low-sugar granola bars that I have been destroying pre- and post-workout lately. They taste, to me, completely indistinguishable from the garbage granola bars out there that can be even worse than a standard candy bar from a nutritional perspective. Monk Pack bars taste as good as those, and yet each one is 150 calories or less, only 2 or 3 net carbs. They're keto-friendly if you're into that. Fair bit of protein, lots of healthy fats from all of the nuts, all the almonds and pumpkin seeds and everything. And they taste like fancy, sophisticated candy bars. The caramel sea salt is probably my favorite, but almond butter cocoa chip is great. Coconut, blueberry almond vanilla, sea salt dark chocolate, that's what this one is. All really good, chiefly sweetened with allulose, which I think is the most promising of all the low-calorie sweeteners. There's no weird aftertaste with it. They source it from non-GMO corn, if that's an issue for you. The bars are gluten-free, if that's an issue, plant-based, and they're just absolutely delicious, soft, chewy, super convenient power snacks that taste like a child's candy bar. Get 20% off your first purchase of any Munk Pack product at munkpack.com by using my code Ragusea at checkout. munkpack.com. Select any product, then enter code Ragusea at checkout to save 20% off your purchase. There's a link in the show notes. If you don't like it, they'll give you an exchange or a refund, whichever you want. Thank you, Munk Pack. Olive face. Olive face is a joke that you're going to hear being made in a few minutes right here by my dear friend Ben Harrison. You'll hear us recapping the 1996 movie Big Night. We're going to recap food-related movies on this new podcast from time to time, and today is one of those times. We're going to recap Big Night, and you'll hear me comment on the fact that an Italian chef in this movie is being played by a non-Italian actor, and you will hear my friend Ben describe said casting choice as an incidence of olive face, in reference to the purportedly olive complexion of Southern Italians such as myself. I think that's a pretty funny joke, and I feel bad that I just spoiled it for you. But I want to talk about it. I want to analyze the joke, which of course is the worst thing you can ever do to a joke. Ben's impromptu coinage of olive face is a reference to blackface, which is a name for a real thing that is not funny. Blackface is an actual problem. Olive face is not an actual problem, which is why it's funny. And why isn't it a real problem? Why is it okay for non-Italians to play Italians? Why is it okay for people to make crude stereotypes about Italians and Italian Americans such as myself? Why is it cool for Nintendo to have their New York Italian American plumber character say things like bada beep, bada boop, bada bing, cow, or whatever he says? Hashtag not my Mario. Mario didn't talk. There was no real sound samples in the NES, so Mario didn't talk. I don't know when Mario started talking, but I do not approve. Though that is not because of the Italian-American stereotypes. Those are fine. I just don't like that Mario talks at all. Why isn't olive face broadly regarded as offensive? It's not offensive to me, or almost anyone else, because there is no evidence that Italian Americans are being significantly harmed by the stereotypes applied to us. That's why. Italian Americans are not struggling for authentic representation in media. We're doing fine. Thanks. True, this was not always quite the case. When impoverished, dark-skinned, devoutly Catholic Southern Italian immigrants like my great-grandparents started flooding into the United States, a country then dominated by Protestants of Northern European descent, these Italians were met with de facto and some de jure discrimination and even some violence, some lynchings. But the scale of this treatment was nothing in comparison to the horrors that white Americans visited upon black Americans during the same period, and in the period before, and in the period after. Italian Americans did fine. The political and economic power they were quickly able to amass and wield was and is enormous. The establishment of Columbus Day as a holiday in the U.S. is hardly the most important piece of evidence of Italian-American power, but it is the most emblematic piece. They said, hey, we Southern Italian immigrants, we are not foreigners in America. We discovered America. And white Anglo-Saxon Protestant America said, oh yeah, let's make Columbus Day a holiday as a gesture of inclusion to Italians. Despite the fact that Christopher Columbus was Genoese, born in northern Italy, and his adult life really had a lot more to do with present-day Spain and Portugal, and despite the fact that he never actually set foot in the present-day United States, despite the fact that he never in his whole life accepted that this is not Asia, and despite the fact that he didn't discover shit, there were already people with advanced civilizations living here, and despite the fact that he was a murderer and a kidnapper and a slaver, and his governorship of Hispaniola was considered appallingly brutal and tyrannical by the monarchs back in Spain who sent him there in the first place, and who themselves knew a thing or two about brutality and tyranny. Yeah, sure, let's declare Columbus Day. That would be the enlightened and inclusive thing to do. those white Anglo-Saxon Protestants said at the time. I think about that often when I think about my own moral certitude in my own time. I wonder if the beliefs that seem enlightened to me now will always be regarded as such. Anyway, Google it. Italian Americans today are significantly richer than the average American. They're more educated, higher status, all of that. There's really no evidence that Italian Americans are harmed or oppressed by the culture at large, which is why olive face isn't a thing, and nobody is trying to cancel Nintendo for that stupid Mario voice, nor should they. The accent is fine. The fact that Mario talks at all is not fine, but that's just my opinion. And why did I feel the need to voice any of these opinions I laid out just now? Well, because I think it's important for us to spell out why some things are okay and why some things aren't okay in our own estimation. I think it's really bad when we just assume that all right-thinking people know what's what. They know why that's offensive. Well, maybe they don't. And maybe you don't. Maybe you've never had to think it through because you've never had to defend your beliefs to anyone. Or maybe you're wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Nintendo should be canceled and blackface is hilarious, innocent fun. If you believe that, fine. I mean, not fine. Fuck you, you're wrong. Especially about the blackface thing. It is not fun and innocent, but at least I told you why I believe that to be true. I spelled out my reasoning. I didn't just assume that it was obvious to anyone with any moral center at all. And maybe my reasoning will persuade you, and maybe not. I don't know. I just know that olive face is a really funny joke. Keep one timpano in the oven for Louis Prima. Our recap of Stanley Tucci's Big Night is coming up next. This episode of the Ragusea Pod is sponsored by Seed. Seed Daily Synbiotic, which is a 2-in-1 pre- and probiotic. This is the first in a pipeline of clinically studied next-generation products for gut health. Whenever I talk about gut health, I feel it's important to emphasize that the research on the subject is still in a relatively early phase, and Seed is totally cool with me saying that right now. But the research is really promising and exciting. These little capsules contain 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains of bacteria to support gastrointestinal health. I have some problems in that area that I'm not going to spell out for you, but I have absolutely experienced relief in my first few weeks of taking Seed. There's reason to believe the bacteria in here can support skin health, micronutrient synthesis in your gut, can support gut immune function, and the capsules themselves are very cleverly designed for like actual bioavailability. There's an inner capsule and an outer capsule, all with the aim of delivering like actual live probiotics to the end of the small intestine. Another cool thing is that they come in this really heavy, sturdy glass jar that you can reuse. All of your refills just come in a little compostable bag like that. Go to seed.com/Ragusea and get 15% off your first month supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by using my code Ragusea at checkout. I also have a link in the show notes, seed.com/Ragusea. Use my code Ragusea for 15% off your first month supply. Thank you, Seed. Benjamin Harrison and Adam Pranica are professional Star Trek episode recappers. And I love that I live in a time and place where that actually is a job held by more than one person. Ben and Adam have two very successful podcasts on the Maximum Fun Network. There's The Greatest Generation, where they started out recapping Star Trek The Next Generation, and they've since moved on through DS9 and into Voyager now. Their other podcast is The Greatest Discovery, where they started out recapping Star Trek Discovery, but have since moved on to review all of the new Trek shows that the Trek industrial complex is pumping out right now. Ben and Adam are smart and funny. They cook. They're both former filmmakers by trade, and they love talking about movies of all kinds. And they are kind enough now to help me debut a new segment on the pod where we will review food-related movies. The segment is called Food on Film. While the Adam Ragusea podcast does not yet have theme music, Food on Film has theme music that I'm about to play. It is a stupid little song called No Weather in California, a song that literally came to me in a dream, And I woke up and I thought that would be a good theme song for like a movie review podcast. And now I kind of have a movie review podcast. So roll the theme music for Food on Film.
There is no weather in California. This can't be a song about the rain. Try Hollywood, dear, but I warn ya, you'll be home to me again.
We're big fans of yours, and you made the music for our show. So this is symbiosis, man.
It almost undersells you made the music for our show. Like, you've made the music for many of our shows, many of the the versions of our shows. We've
made like single episode one-off podcasts that you made entire suites of theme music for.
Well, see, that was back when I had like a straight job and I had no creative outlets, you know?
Yeah.
And
now that you do, we can't get you on the phone anymore.
So we are here to discuss, boy, you know, surely one of the most foodie food films of all time, right?
Yeah,
I can't imagine a more foodie film.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't even have a thief or a wife in it. It's just got cooks.
Oh, I got it right. Yes,
it does have lovers.
Yes, and love.
Yeah.
Yes, the interrelation between the food making and love making arts is very much foregrounded in this film.
Have you ever had like I love cooking. I love putting on a big feast. I'm usually taking lead on Thanksgiving and
Both of
things
you,
like
right?
that. I cannot imagine like knocking off in the middle of prepping a big Thanksgiving feast and going and having sex twice and then coming back to the kitchen and taking it over the line.
That's why you want to go low and slow, both in the kitchen and in the bedroom, if that's your plan for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
but is it not implied that at least one of those bangs is business, right? That Segundo has to have sex with Isabella Rossellini,
right?
Because he needs it for his business. There's some kind of business exchange there, which is why he would do the unthinkable of having sex with Isabella Rossellini.
The unthinkable and yet the thinkable.
I've thought about it.
The unthinkable and the all I can think about.
Right. I mean, like, thinking about the size and beauty of this kitchen and then all of the making out with Minnie Driver and Isabella Rossellini that Stanley Tucci, the writer and co-director of this film, gets to do, it all starts to crystallize what he was up to when he conceived
there's
of
certainly
this.
Films where it's like there's a male auteur who definitely the whole exercise is just like, I can't get beautiful women to kiss me in real life, so I'm going to make a movie where that happens necessarily. Yeah. On the other hand, though, like the Tooch, 35 years old Tooch with hair and the slick back widow's peak, that Tooch can get it.
Yeah. That's an antipasto if ever there was one.
Oh. I suppose we should start at the beginning. The camera opens on a young Italian waiter sauntering into work. And no, it's not an Italian waiter. It is Latin heartthrob Mark Anthony.
Yeah, I watched this with my wife, and she was like, that guy looked just like Mark Anthony. I was like, I got news for you.
I had exactly the opposite conversation with my wife, Ben, which was, hey, that's Mark Anthony. And she's like, oh.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was like, no fucking way.
No, I had exactly the opposite interaction with my wife than you had with yours.
Well, but it's demonstrated that your wife likes tall men because you are very tall, and Mark Anthony is not.
Yeah, I guess not. He's hardly as tall as the broom he's pushing at the end of the film.
He's a fun size. He's pocket. And I looked it up, and he had not crossed over into English language pop stardom at this point. I mean, he was huge in Spanish language, and I wonder why he wanted to do this.
Yeah, the unspeaking role. it's he's kind of the R2-D2 of the film, right? He's sort of ever present, but
In the
never
sense
has
that
a
he's
line.
short? How else?
Yeah, and that he has like a little torch that comes out
Yeah,
of
retractable things come out of him all the time to
Yeah.
provide the Deus Ex Machina.
Right. I thought he was great. I thought his performance was really fun. He had so many great little moments where he's just in the corner of a frame doing something that catches your eye and really like adds to the texture of the film.
When he puts his jacket on Minnie Driver at the end, you're like, fuck you, Mark Anthony. Don't do that. Don't get involved in this.
Well, especially given that like he has to like reach up above his head like he's,
Right.
doing a military press.
He's dressing a mannequin.
I don't think of Minnie Driver as being a particularly statuesque woman, but she really towers over just about everyone else
She
in
is
this movie.
statuesque in every sense of that term in this film. Like when she walks out of the sea, like she walks into the sea out of frustration at the end of the film. And it made me, because my wife, whenever she's very frustrated with the situation, she just says, I just want to walk into the sea.
Is that inspired by this film?
I don't know. I don't think she's seen it.
I feel like she does that trick, like where you hit an elevator and you're standing behind a couch and you go down. Like she's in very shallow water there, because when she finally stands up, she just basically like straightens her legs.
Minnie Driver could do mime. Minnie Driver could do anything.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the Baywatch people used this technique a lot. Like a lot of the rescues are meant to be taking place like way out in the waves, and they're just in like 13 inches of surf.
Well, the insurance company, it's just got to do it.
Exactly.
So Mark Anthony saunters into work into the most spacious professional kitchen ever. And inside it, cooking, is an Italian chef. No, actually, it's a Lebanese guy named Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah.
And I had a thought when this occurred to me, that like only one of these guys is vaguely Italian, and it's the Tucci, right?
Right.
And so there's, on the rare occasion that I am foolish enough to look at my Google alerts, right, for mentions of my name, I have seen that there are sort of anti-Semitic corners of the internet that have determined that I am secretly Jewish.
Wow.
No, their reasoning being all of this, the nose and the thing, right?
Yeah, you have dark hair.
Right.
I don't know why you're so interested in comments on your YouTube channel on Stormfront.
Yeah.
Again, it was a very unwise evening, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I made a number of poor choices that night. One of them was opening my Google alerts, right?
Right.
But what I wanted to say to these boys, if I knew how to comment in this space, which I don't, what I wanted to say to them is like, dude, have you everyone in the Mediterranean looks like this. The whole Mediterranean basin, everybody from along it, we all look like this, okay?
Right.
Which is why a Puerto Rican guy and a Lebanese guy can walk into a kitchen with the Tucci and they theoretically look like family, right?
They all read as part of the same group, yeah. And I think I wonder if they made this movie today, if they would have gotten weird like blowback for that, because there are like,
if it was some nationality other than Italian, sure, but Italian is like,
I mean, Italians are famously cool about depictions of their culture. Like, I'm sure they'd be fine.
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, there are so many like people in right-wing media now that are like just that, like, all they do all day is make extremely bad faith arguments about, well, if this is,
They would point out the hypocrisy of it, you mean, right?
Right,
I see,
yeah.
right. And then we would need to dig into all of the numbers about how Italian Americans are really substantively disadvantaged in the United States. They're really terrible income. They don't inhabit any positions of power. Right.
Is this what your show's about, Goose? Like, are we doing it right for the Italians?
Oh, well, let's use that as a transition. So the brothers, the Tucci, who is secondo, and Tony Shalhoub, who is primo because he's first in birth.
The firstborn, yeah.
Firstborn.
He stands to inherit the title and all the land of their family.
Right, exactly. But Segundo seems to be the one in charge, right? Like it's Primo is. I think is it implied that Primo is not?
I kind of got that sense, that he's maybe on the spectrum or in some way. Like, I mean, Segundo says at one point in the movie that like Primo basically can't take care of himself,
right? And
that's only hinted at in dialogue, but yeah, I kind of got that sense.
I didn't know if it was the idea that Primo Primo has problems, or if it's part of the kind of broader sort of infantilization of men that happens in Italian culture to some extent. That is expressed really, I think, very explicitly in the film by like these two grown ass men having the same bedroom and all that kind of stuff. Like that sort of men in that kind of culture stay children until they are married, right?
Are you guys only children, both of you? Do you have siblings?
I am an only.
I mean, I know Ben's answer to this question, but Goose, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have Tony Ragusia, who has a YouTube channel about tiny trees.
Is tiny trees code for marijuana?
That would be much more profitable than his existing YouTube channel about bonsai, but yeah.
I mean, just because you have specific interests that you are extremely excited about and focused on, that doesn't make you non-Euronormative in your brother's eyes, right? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like in a sibling relationship, I think it's natural that one falls into the caretaker category for the other, just because that's how families tend to operate. So I never saw the brothers' relationship as one of Primo needing Secondo's care. I saw it as like one brother recognizing that the other brother isn't as good as some things as he is. And when you're family, you just kind of pick up that kind of slack. I never read it the way you guys did.
I gotta get a brother.
It's never too late.
I think you'd hate that, Ben. I think you're better off.
Okay.
Yes, because as your business partner, Adam Pranica, knows, you are, or is implying, you are apparently terrible in dealing with other people or sharing.
Collaborative creative projects, yeah. Yeah, their food is too Italian in this movie. It's
Italian.
Not going over well with the American palate.
A couple of rubes stumble into this Jersey Shore ristorante, and unassumingly, no, not unassumingly, when you don't know what you're in for, what's the word for that?
Ignorant?
Ignorant. Let's go with ignorantly. Ignorantly order the risotto. A seafood risotto, and it comes out, and here, let's listen.
Excuse me, didn't you say that this was going to be rice with seafood?
Yes. Yeah. That is, it is Italian arboreal rice, the best. And then with shrimp and scallop and...
I just don't see anything that looks like a shrimp or a scallop. It's not what I expected.
I like how she's about to say disappointed, and then she stops herself. Because even if even though they're very much painted very broadly as this just absolutely no finer graces New Jersey couple, right? Like she knows to stop herself and not say disappointed. She just says, not what I expected.
There's something so familiar about the in the statement by Secundo there, because I know we've all worked in retail or restaurant environments where a customer has outed themselves as a dumb. And you need to give yourself that moment to react in a kind way, in a forgiving way, and is the half a second he needs to find the words to not totally destroy this woman at the dinner table, right? Like I've heard myself say that so many times before. Like,
oh yeah,
you need it as a crutch.
The crutch.
I was a busboy in a restaurant that had a Michelin star, and
seriously?
Took a complaint
in the Bay Area, right?
In New York.
New York. Oh, okay.
And I took a complaint from a customer who had ordered the burger, which was one of the burgers that got talked about as maybe the best in New York at the time. And she was clearly a very rich woman who came in with like her little children and ordered the burger, and it was very medium rare. It was on the rare side of medium rare, and she had never encountered pink meat in the middle of a burger before, and like was complaining that the kitchen had clearly made a mistake. And I was like, that's actually how the burger is.
No, you said,
yeah,
that's actually how the burger is.
And it didn't go over well. She sent it back and didn't have to pay for it. And
So on the other hand, should you not, as her server, have asked her how she wanted that burger? Or is that not what we do in starred restaurants? Ristorante.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting moment, both in this movie and in like restaurants in general. Like, this was a burger that was prepared in that way. They didn't prepare it any other way at that restaurant, and that's like a choice that was made by the chef and the ownership of the restaurant. I was the bearer of that news. I didn't have any say one way or another. Nobody could. Like, you couldn't get a different type of cheese.
You see, ma'am, the juicy must be Lucy.
Yeah. I'm making $3 an hour plus tips. So, but yeah, like the tension at the beginning of this movie is, can Primo change his food to appeal to the palates of the potential customers he has, or is he so particular about it that he refuses to? And I think there are good arguments in both directions,
Well, to dig into the technicalities of it, I suppose the implication is that it's a seafood risotto that's made with, like, I'm sure, a freshly made, beautiful seafood stock, right? And that is what's chiefly seafoodish about it. Mm-hmm. But it probably also has some little teeny bits of scallop and shrimp, etc., right?
We don't get an ECU on the plate.
We did not. We don't get those until later.
Yeah.
But boy, do we get them later.
Yeah. This is like Jaws, you see the shark, but like toward the end.
So you see a little teeny tip of the shark fin is in this risotto. And like, it is said in the movie that the reason that you don't put too much animal protein into the risotto is that, like, arboreal rice is the best, right? Like, it's all about the rice, right?
Yeah.
And what I wonder, what I don't feel I know, is like, is that really how they would have felt about it? Like southern Italian, like they're from Calabria, right? Like, so, which is like the tip of the boot, right? Poor ass place, right?
This is spicy, the spicy part of Italy, right?
Yes. They put
chilies and stuff.
So yes, hot climate. So all of the post-Columbian exchange crops do very well there. And this is why, spices and tomatoes and all of that. That's what, and wheat, because they're broke, so they don't have any actual meat. They just eat starch, right? And this is why they eventually emigrated to the United States, and why everyone in the United States thinks Italian food is Southern Italian food, right? This is why, right? So what I wonder is, like, would the guys back in Calabria have thought that the reason you don't put in too much shellfish is because you need to keep the emphasis on the rice because the rice is sacred and blah, 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 blah? I question that. Or did they just not put in enough animal protein because they didn't have that much, right? And to bolster my obvious favoring of the second theory there.
You're just reading the IMDb pedant comments right now, Goose. Like, Arborio fan 69 wrote this comment exactly, and I know you're reading it verbatim.
These people showed up in New York and New Jersey. And what did they do as soon as they got to this unbelievably, this land of plenty, this sea of abundance that they found here? They started putting freaking meatballs the size of what they imagined the size of their balls to be, like, in their food, right? It's what they wanted. They wanted more meat. They just didn't have it. And I wonder if, like, this whole, my broader kind of question about this film is that, like, is it actually like a 90s mentality that is being superimposed into, when does this film take place? In the 60s, we think?
Like
right?
Early 50s, I think.
Okay. So basically in the 90s, you've got, like, everybody fancy in New York, everybody that, Ben Harrison would have been hanging out with at the time. It was all just like, oh, actually, see, in Italy, they don't have meatballs with the spaghetti. You know, they either have the meatballs or they have the spaghetti. And it was this realization that Italian American food was not Italian food, which is true and an important and valuable realization to have. But that doesn't mean that Italian food is bad. Italian American food is bad. And indeed, in the next scene, when Segundo goes over to Bilbo Baggins' place, sorry, what's that actor's name?
Ian Holm.
Yeah. So, what's his character's name? It's Pascal. So they go to Pascal's, right? Which is sort of painted to be a very successful shamelessly Italian-American joint. And we get a Goodfellas-esque like one shot of the Tucci walking through this restaurant, and there's all kinds of wonderful things happening here. And we see guys like, shovel. There's like actual shoveling of caprese salad like that we see, and there's big giant meatballs and all this kind of stuff. And I think we are given to understand in the audience that this place is trash. But all I wanted to do was go there. It looked awesome.
It looked great.
The food looked great. Everyone is having a great time. What the fuck is wrong with that?
A ton of booths. Like, there's something very uncomfortable seeming about the restaurant that Primo and Secondo operate. It's so bright. The chairs look uncomfortable. It doesn't look like a place anyone would want to linger and have a fun evening out.
Tony Shalhoub could come storming out of the kitchen and yell at you for not liking your food.
No, what you notice is the size of the tables, right? Like, instead of the big padded booth, it's those teeny tables. And I think it's a venue where people from the Mediterranean basin, as they are wont to do, can practice their long-honed art of very large men sitting at teeny tiny tables, sipping from little cups, right? Because that's just whatever, like Greeks do that, the Lebanese, the Italians, they all do that.
They love playing with scale in the Mediterranean, you know?
That's right, exactly. It's all forced perspective. That's what it's about. I'm sorry, Pratica, go ahead.
I mean, it's weird, like that other restaurant is made to look clownish for all its excesses, but you're totally right. Like, they don't take any responsibility for how uncomfortable their own restaurant might be seen by the neighborhood. Nothing is welcoming about it.
And I guess I don't know if what the film thinks about that. Yeah. I mean, I think the film acknowledges that Primo and Secondo kind of suck at their jobs, right? It acknowledges that.
Right.
But to what extent does it attribute their failure to their sucking at their jobs versus Americans' rubery? You know?
I mean, that's sort of something that they give Ian Holm to say, though, right? He says a lot without saying it, but like he kind of puts it on them as.
Oh, here we have a clip.
Yeah.
A guy goes out to eat in the evening after a long day in the office, whatever. Right. You don't want on his plate something that he has to look and think, what the fuck is this? No, right. What you want is, a steak. This is a steak. I like a steak, you know? I'm happy.
And God forbid we should think that the restaurant business is about making people happy.
Right. I mean, I think that you can kind of make this movie what you want it to be. Like, if you want it to be the searing indictment of ignorant American culture, you can enjoy that as element of it. And if you want it to be the indictment of fancy assholes who won't bend even the slightest amount to make food that is pleasing to people in the market that they've chosen to operate a restaurant, you can see it as that, you know?
Well, it's the mark of a good film. That kind of ambiguity is the mark of a good film. Wouldn't you say?
No, I like to know what the movie's about personally. I really wanted to hit me over the head with it. Consider my head il timpano. I want it to be beaten into me.
Boom, 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 boom. Well, so in this scene, it is revealed that that things are not going well for the restaurant. Segundo needs a loan, and he's come to Pascal for it, and Pascal says no.
He's trying to borrow from Pascal to pay Paul.
You just assuming that very Anglo-American banker is named Paul? What the fuck, man?
Yeah, that's an awful assumption on my part. I retract that joke.
And we learn that really they're on the edge. But at the same time, in this scene, it is revealed, no, it is implied that Pascal has other reasons for wanting to see the brothers fail.
Right.
One being that he wants Primo especially to come and work for him at Pascal's to cook. But the other is that he seems to be aware that the Tucci is boning his beautiful wife, Isabella Rossellini, in addition to, rather chastely not boning Minnie Driver.
Right.
And maybe Pascal's, scuttling of the ristorante, of their ristorante, Paradise, I think it's called, is to eliminate his romantic rival. And I think one of the things I really like about the film is that it is not explicit about Pascal's motives. And I think Pascal is revealed over the course of the film to be a very complex person and who really actually has all three of those motives at all times, right?
He's really the hero of the film. You're right.
Are you saying that as a joke? Because I kind of think he is.
I don't think you're wrong in that he's the most interesting character in the film. I think everyone else he's the most multidimensional. Everyone else has single or double dimensions, I'd say.
Well, what are the Tucci's dimensions? Because we see him repeatedly being very cruel to Minnie Driver especially, but also to his brother, to really he snaps at everyone. And are we given to understand that the Tucci's character is a bad guy, or that he's just a good guy under an enormous amount of pressure?
Yeah, he's under a huge amount of stress, and he's experiencing the life of his business in a way that his brother isn't. And I think it's natural when you're stressed out and frustrated to lash out at the people who are trying to love you. I am someone who does it all the time. Just ask Ben.
Sure, let's ask Ben.
He's carrying the stress and keeping it all to himself too. Like he doesn't reveal what is bothering him to anyone.
Is it pride that motivates that? He just doesn't want anybody to know that he's not good at this.
Yeah, I mean that sort of
because he walks around in a suit that says otherwise, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
there's a martyrdom to that kind of pressure, though, too. Like, I want to spare the people I care about the bad feelings that I'm experiencing at the moment,
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't need to worry about this if I'm handling it.
Yeah.
And the scene with Ian Holm is very interesting from that perspective because he's being vulnerable with like his greatest rival rather than all of the people that love him.
Well, he sees Ian Holm as like a father figure, right? Doesn't he?
I guess so, but it's like I don't see anything about Ian Holm that would lead me to believe that that's like a good choice to see him as a father figure. Well,
fathers provide. Ian Holm provides. He bought a boat.
He had some good tips too. Like, here are some like marketing ideas for your restaurant. Here's a way that I got some famous people in the front door at my place. Like relying on Ian Holm to bring in the famous people is the big mistake. But he could have just listened to him and like thought about, okay, like who's here in town at a hotel? I'll do the bottle of champagne to the hotel room trick.
Yeah. Or hell, you've got like Mark Anthony working there.
Right.
Just have him sing, for God's sake. Why do you need Louis Prima? So
have you thought about putting some mofongo on the menu and maybe trying to appeal to a slightly different crowd?
That's right. Exactly. People in Jersey Shore love it these days.
Yeah.
So here we get to the sort of the animating thing of the whole film where Pascal promises to get his buddy Louis Prima, the singer Louis Prima, to come to Ristorante Paradise and experience the genius there and therefore spread the good word of the restaurant far and wide.
Pretty annoying that there's going to be a guy named Prima in a movie that already has a character named Primo, I think.
Yeah, but of those two, if you just go by their names, you know who's going to win.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, especially in a like a machismo-driven culture like the Italians, right? Like Primo's coming on top.
No comment.
I can say it. You can't say it. I can say it.
I can't say it.
That's right. Exactly. So the boys go about preparing a feast for Mr. Louis Prima and his entourage. And one of my favorite parts of the film is when the Tucci, who has just come back, by the way, from having sex with Isabella Rossellini. It is implied, again, not that he wanted to. I mean, God, why would you want to? But because he needed some business help, right? And so he got the call of duty from Isabella Rossellini. He went in and did his duty. And then he comes back, and Minnie Driver is there helping Tony Shalhoub cook and being delightful and beautiful. And so they're in the kitchen, and they naturally get to smooching. And then Bilbo Baggins comes in and like sees them, kind of catches them smooching in the back, and he does that, that very Italian thing where he just, oh, sorry, and he gets out of there because a man does not block the cock, right? Like that is what's said in that face, right? Oh, no. Right. But then he does the second most Italian thing, which is that he immediately comes back in because he is so in love with love. He's so enamored of what is happening in there that he just has to show appreciation and support for all of it.
Right.
And it's just the best. It's just the best. I love it. I love these
very
people.
Cute. The crowd that winds up getting invited to the meal is also really funny. It's just kind of like everybody they happen to run into over the course of the day. Like, oh yeah, you should come to the big dinner.
Yeah, there's a kind of like Magnificent Seven vibe to it, right? Like it's a posse film. It's like it's rounding up the posse.
Yeah. I wonder if there are cut scenes where, because there's plenty of people at the feast that we didn't see their backstory of how they got there.
That's a good point. Yeah. We see the Cadillac salesman. We know why the newspaper reporter is there to report on Louis Prima's visit. But big news. There's a bunch of people there. We don't. Yeah, big news. That is back when newspapers had enough reporters to send not even like an intern, but a grown ass man in a suit.
Yeah.
To a restaurant
reporter in a necktie
to report on the possibility that Louis Prima ate there.
What was his deadline exactly if he was there until 3 a.m.?
Well, that's back when they had the afternoon papers, right? So
I guess so.
Yeah.
Stop the presses.
Yeah.
Prima eats timpano.
Also, during this kind of Magnificent Seven rounding up the gang period of the film, we see Tony Shalhoub go over to the flower lady, who is revealed to be C.J. Craig from The West Wing. And I actually really feel bad that I don't know her name because I think she's a marvelous actress.
Allison Janney.
Allison Janney, that's right, yes. And
also looking lovely in this movie.
Oh gosh, every woman in this film is just a dream to look at.
And Liv Schreiber, also a dream to look at. Fucking assholes.
Liv Schreiber, like, kind of an extra in this movie. Like, I don't even think he has an on-screen credit.
I feel like Liv Schreiber has that effect in movies. In many movies that he's not the star of, you always get that, is that Liv Schreiber kind of moment? and then really, like, 90% of the time it is.
It is, yeah, exactly. That's right, yeah. So it is revealed that Allison Janney and the Shoob are both hot for each other, but the Shoob can't get himself together to say anything about it, and this is the era when the dude has to be the one to say something about it. And so all of this sets up the big dinner scene, which, like, it's so funny. It's like there's this class. I feel like there's a class of movies that are defined by one section, right? And it's almost as though like nobody really cares about the rest of it. Right? There's like movies where it's like they'll call it the scene, but it's not a scene, right? It's a whole sort of act, right? And this is that act, right? It's the dinner scene, the dinner act.
Very much so. Although I would argue that the omelet in this movie is like also the scene level scene.
Well, that's the coda, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
And yeah, but in the dinner, basically there's this tension happening throughout it. And we should mention the star dish of the evening is going to be this thing that the brothers say they have brought from Calabria, and it's called timpano. Let's listen.
Timpano is a pasta. No. With a special crust. No. And is shaped like a drum. No. Like a timpani drum.
What are you doing? What should you do something?
And the inside.
Come on, please, my God.
All of the most important things in the world.
And indeed, this is a very impressive baked pasta dish when it comes out, right? It's like wrapped in pasta sheets.
Yeah.
But on the inside, what's there? It's like penne and tomato sauce and like some ricotta cheese. Hard-boiled eggs, right? Which is like, that's the most exotic thing in it.
If he combined risotto and meatballs and pasta and stuff, like totally contradicting his feelings from the earlier scene. This is the only way I like to combine these ingredients.
That's right, exactly. Well, if I can put this in the language of my audience who are younger than me, it's Tony Shalhoub, never mix pasta and other things. Also Tony Shalhoub, mix pasta and all the things, right?
Have you ever made this on your famous YouTube channel?
No. And I kind of don't want to, because it's to me it's such a disappointment. Like for me, growing up in the like Pluto orbit of New York, in central Pennsylvania, and going to places where basically these guys or their descendants were cooking, right? And I grew up with the assumption that all Italian food is just different spatial configurations of tomato sauce, pasta, ground beef, and ricotta cheese, right?
Right.
Like it's just those things put on top of each other in different ways.
Italian Taco Bell is what you thought of it as, huh?
Right, exactly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Fair comparison. Hey, it's all the Mediterranean basin.
Uh-huh.
Because everyone knows Taco Bell is just like Iberian Spanish cuisine.
Yeah. I think if there's one takeaway anyone could grasp from this show, it's that.
It's that, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Straight up.
I mean, I had to say, this looked really delicious to me. I've been making my own pasta lately, and I know you make your own pasta a lot. The Goose on your show. And the idea of like hand rolling the ziti that go in the timpano.
Yeah.
It's like, I bet this actually is really awesome.
It is, and it makes great film. I mean, just God, the making of fresh pasta is one of the most beautiful things to behold. And really here it in like grainy 1990s film stock, it looks so beautiful and so much like I cannot shoot flour to save my life. Like it's going to get blown out no matter what I do. Yeah. And I've often asked you guys for help with that. And
my advice was to toast it.
I was full after the opening courses of this movie though. Like the timpano comes out and I'm like, how the fuck are they going to have courses after the courses we already had? And then after this also, like everybody's getting a wedding cake size wedge of the timpano, and then there's going to be chicken and fish.
How the fuck do you serve that? Because it's like this tall. Like even if you did an incredibly thin slice, it would still be like a complete dinner plate of food.
It's like 1,600 calories in a quarter-inch thick slice.
There's some honesty in this film about what an assault this meal is for everyone involved.
Oh yeah,
right?
Oh yeah.
Lots of those shots of like everybody just being like,
yeah. That one lady like lying down on the table.
I do think that's very real. I also, I think we all three of us know that very real feeling that is captured very authentically, where they're just like, do we cut it? No, it's too hot. Like it's gonna fall apart. It needs to set, right?
Right.
And they're just agonizing over that moment. And then they're about to cut it and they're like, no,
cut it in front of everybody.
Yeah. If you're going to blow it big.
Yeah, that is doing it on hard mode, because if it hasn't set enough and they cut it, and it just
no, it gives it time to cool down, because especially it's gonna be exposed to so much air as you carry it through.
Oh yeah, as they go the 15 feet out into the dining room.
Yeah, fuck. The shoe knows about thermodynamics. Okay, like
that thing is so big and so deep. It's got to take like 2 hours to set, right? Like
just to cool. Yes, it's like
you take a lasagna out of the oven. You probably don't want to serve it for like 30 minutes, but you take Il Timpano out of the oven, like take it out at noon, and it's going to be ready by dinner time, right?
Yeah, it's true. But that very moment that like where they're about to cut in, they stop. Like that spoke to me so hard, because what I do all day is like fear making the irreparable action, right? When I'm like shooting food, like everything else that I can get multiple shots of, whatever. Like, but like
you just described me and Ben socially.
What's the last irreparable action that happened between the two of you? And is there footage? Can I see it?
Almost daily they happen.
I like making pie, and this is also a thing that you deal with pie, is like
you gotta let it sit on the windowsill and hope that a hobo doesn't steal it.
Right, and my neighborhood is just lousy with bows, so serves me right for buying a house right next to the rail yard.
Yeah, you get a shovel off your driveway, Ben. There's like 1,000 bindles out there.
And I'm like, hey, you want lunch? And you're like, I have had enough boiled boot for one lifetime.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, it makes me, that raises the question. It's like these kinds of like multi-course extravaganzas of dining. We read about them in the historic record, right? Like this is how like the Romans theoretically ate or whatever, or at least the patrician among them, right? And
when Primo and Secondo head back to Italy to help their uncle, it's how the Romans will eat again, my friend.
That was some good show don't tell, because I was going to have to be like, here's some exposition, there's the stakes, like they're thinking about going back to Italy, and that's like if they're going to have to go back if this dinner doesn't go well. But there you go, you did the show don't tell. There was also a stunning bit of show don't tell at the very beginning of this film where Tony Shalhoub is like, asks if something needs more salt, but he asks in Italian or Calabrian, I should say. And the Tucci says, and the way he says it is like he's saying like, no, we're supposed to talk English here because I need to get you better at this. Okay, remember, that's what we're doing here. Ask me in English. And not only does that tell us a whole bunch about like their relationship and where they're at in life and all of that, but it also establishes for the film why they're speaking English, right?
Right.
And we're not wondering that the whole time. Like we're wondering, why is William Wallace 40 years old in Braveheart the whole time? Like one line of dialogue could have fixed that. I've been fighting in France as a mercenary or something, right? Like that's why I just came back now. Could have fixed it.
They chose not to.
Also a film with an ending that really made me hungry.
Ayo. Well done. So Louis Prima doesn't show. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, it's kind of a Waiting for Godot type of story arc here. Like they don't even sit down to dinner till super late because of the Waiting for Louis Prima issue. I was waiting for him to come in like after everybody had finished with Il Timpano and been like, hey, we got a second Timpano. Don't worry, it's coming out right now.
That's true, because they did allow for that possibility.
Yeah.
In the film, like there's the moment where like. Where the Tucci says, no, don't turn out the second Timpano because that one's for Louis Prima. And it didn't occur to me until you said it, Ben. But yeah, that's the film actually trying to hold out suspense for us, the audience, that we might still believe that Louis Prima could actually show up, because we don't know at that point yet that Pascal, in fact, never called Louis Prima because Pascal wants the brothers to fail for at least 3 different, very compelling reasons.
What happened to the second Timpano? Did I miss the scene where they threw it in the trash, or they had it for family meal the next day?
Why didn't they just eat that in the morning instead of making eggs?
That's what I'm saying. Also, maybe, was this the moment that they left open for the sequel? Like Big Night 2? Timpano too timpano too furious. Too timpano, I'm not hungry anymore.
I think it was actually a deleted scene where when they were fighting on the beach, Tony Shalhoub smashes it over Secondo's head.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's a lost opportunity.
That would have been great,
because you could totally
right?
do that. You could totally smash that over someone's head.
Yeah.
That would have been epic. Oh, but instead, the brothers, just after their plan has failed and Louis Prima hasn't turned up, they have a sort of an epic row on the beach outside the restaurant where they sort of tell each other how they actually feel about each other. And
I think the most like sci-fi element of this film is that neither of them has a dot of tomato sauce on their like Tony Shalhoub is in a white chef's jacket. The Tooch is in a white tuxedo jacket. They've been cooking all night. Like both of them have been in the kitchen cooking. Neither of them has a spot on their clothes until they get in a fight on the beach.
See, no. You're in the headspace of like, you know, modern digital videography, right? Where this isn't 4K. This is fucking film, right? Grainy ass film too, right?
It is.
Ben, what did you make of Tony Shalhoub's arms looking like two bearskin rugs when any professional chef would have had all that hair singed off the first week in the kitchen?
Let's see your arms to find out if you're a real man.
Yeah.
No.
Have you guys seen that the State sketch where they're like, it's like an Italian family that owns a restaurant and the Pope is coming to dinner and they're all wearing white because they're really excited that the Pope is coming, and then one of them comes out with a huge pot of tomato sauce and it just turns into a tomato sauce fight. You got the sauce on my nice Hawaii jacket. I wanted that scene in this movie.
Yeah.
So that aspect beggars belief, but also this fight on the beach. What is ostensibly the light source for that fight?
It's
because it is the middle of the night, and there's light coming from the ocean that's lighting them.
Yeah.
What's there that's lighting them?
I like how Minnie Driver is spotlit in the ocean too. That's fun.
But with pathos too, because she's sad, right? And that's the moment where she leaves Segundo because she knows about Isabella Rossellini. And then we get to the final scene, another one shot, right? Another long lingering one shot. And apparently this is the scene, like MGM was going to distribute this film and they didn't because they wanted the ending changed.
Whoa.
They wanted them to eat the second timpano, huh?
That's right, exactly. That's totally what those executives would have said, right? Like what we need, that timpano, it's like it's the cat you got to save, right? This
is what I am on all our review shows. All the shows I'm on with Ben is like I represent the executive's point of view.
Well, sure. If you don't, who will?
Yeah.
It's a very brave spot for you to stake out, Adam. There are many elements of this scene that are very difficult to pull off, like the making the omelet.
We should say for people who haven't seen it. So yes, the Tooch, after having been out all night following this row and this devastating, failure, comes back into the kitchen. Mark Antony is asleep like a cat on the on the counter
on the chef's table. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Tooch proceeds to make an omelet to just feed his staff of one, his cat Mark Antony.
Is the food safety rating of this restaurant just a Mr. Yuck face outside, given Shalhoub's hairy arms and where the staff sleeps at night? And that sink that doesn't work. You can't open a restaurant with
You're not counting on the naturally
sink.
antimicrobial properties of wooden cutting boards, which my audience loves to remind me about.
Yeah.
Because
hey, is this seasoning the cutting board, Goose? You just season it with an employee?
Oh God, you bring it here? You bring it to my home. My home. In my bedroom where my wife sleeps.
Yeah. I didn't catch which of the two omelet plates he put the vinegar on, though. Was it the one on the right or on the left?
You're implying that he made like a chemical bomb for Shalhoub?
The really hard thing about this scene is that all three actors eat what amounts to an entire meal. So if you need to reset, they have to eat a meal again.
Dude, that's not even, I mean, I will grant you that. But the much harder thing than eating a third of an omelet is for the Tucci to, while he's like, you know, he's also ostensibly, you know, co-directing this film, by the way. So he's like not only starring in the scene, he's directing it. He's like making sure, you know, that he's hitting all his marks and his blocking, and he's, you know, he's in the frame and all that kind of shit. And then he cooks an omelet, start to finish, in the film, in what? In a fucking stainless steel pan. Okay? Yeah. Not even a cast iron. A fucking stainless pan. He cooks not scrambled eggs, but a omelet that flows out of the pan like water.
It slips right out. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I question whether or not those were real eggs or movie eggs.
Stunt eggs? Movie eggs?
Yeah.
like made out of like the cornflakes that they used to simulate snow or whatever.
Yeah.
It's actually the one digital effect in the movie. Is,
that's right. Because everyone knows it's not possible. No. It's possible. Actually, the movie proves how it's possible, which is that you put half the bottle of olive oil into the pan before you put in the eggs. And that's the secret.
I'm wondering if that pan was also pre-hot. Like, because I know that in my experience, I get less sticking to the pan when I let the pan heat up for quite a while before I drop the eggs in. So,
and there is enormous controversy about why that is.
Oh, really?
Yes, because like people say that it's like, oh, well, it's about like the micropores in the metal filling up due to thermal expansion of the metal, and then people are just like, well, wait a minute, but when you take a piece of metal and get it hot, it expands in all directions. It doesn't just expand inward. And then an asshole like me comes in and says, well, actually the bottom is getting hotter than the rim, so the rim is constricting the expansion, so it's causing it to sort of force inward into the pores.
You can't forget about the rim, Goose.
Right.
That's right.
You got to focus on the whole thing.
And then if you check your Google mentions, you might find portions of the internet that are arguing that it's a secret conspiracy of the Jews to make the pan not stick.
Indeed. But I'm not going to click on that one. I'm going to click on the conversation at hotrims.net.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's where my email server is.
You know what? You should do some research on the website for people who make just the outside of all pans, rimjobs.com.
Audience, this is the kind of quality entertainment that you can get in your pod feed twice a week from the Greatest Trek family of podcasts.
Do you know the trivia of how many times they shot this before they nailed it? Because to me, the money shot, the craziest part is the pan away from the pan when Tucci goes and gets another plate with the eggs still on heat. And like, you've got to know within fractions of an angle on the knob of the oven what you're working with there temperature wise. Otherwise, when the pan comes back, you're looking at a fire.
It's true. Because basically, you know, so Shaloub comes in very late in this process, and his reconciliation with his brother is wordlessly signified by Shaloub sitting down and the Tucci going and getting him that remaining third of omelet that's in the pan that for some reason is not burned.
Secondo's like, what do you think about pivoting into a breakfast restaurant? This is what he's not saying.
You will note like that. I mean, maybe it wasn't burned, but that omelet was cooked the fuck through because that's how the Italians do it. Okay. Like they're not French. This is not France. Okay.
There's nothing custardy about that.
Yes, they cooked shit all the way through. And so I think that's why.
Does that make it a frittata? Is that what that would be called?
I don't know if it would technically, because it wasn't baked. Is not a frittata baked? Or is that merely my Americanized sense of it?
The executives wanted this scene to end with Shaloub going like, I thought there was going to be seafood in this omelet, and I'm digging around in here, and
I'm just not finding my shrimps.
Yeah.
If you know that this technically counts as a frittata, just leave a comment on Stormfront. Let us
know. I'm sure someone will let us know about that. But to your point, Adam, actually, did you notice that like the eggs are blown out, really blown out in the pan? which is to mean, just to say, it's overexposed. Like they didn't quite plan for how bright the eggs would be.
Everything in this kitchen is blown out. Like I mentioned earlier, like the Reservoir Dogs type of lighting that they used is like so many movies in 1996 looked like this, and it's why I saw this movie for the first time last night with you, and it was so nostalgic to see it because it looked like a dozen other films.
It looks like the Friends set. That kitchen looks like the set of Friends.
It does. Man.
Why? Why were they lighting shit that way then?
I mean,
it's an indie movie from the late 90s aesthetic.
Yeah, so why wouldn't it be dark and grainy? It should look like a movie from the 70s. It should be like, what the hell? I can't even see what's happening. I can't even... It's
an overcorrection, Goose. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this movie is kind of pitched as a comedy / drama. Like it's not like a real... It's not a knee slapper, but it does have kind of comedy lighting, I would say. It's not super dramatically lit.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. I think you're right. It's sort of it's lit like a romantic comedy.
Right.
It's not lit like The Godfather.
They didn't light Minnie Driver's vomit. That was a choice they made. Like everything else is lit super hot except for Minnie Driver's vomit.
Which, by the way,
did she just get overserved?
Oh, I thought it was implied that she is with child.
What?
But they're chaste. They established at the beginning that they're not boning yet.
I asked my wife if that was if the implication was that she was pregnant, and she laughed at me. So,
well, I guess it's not the morning. But my problem with that scene is that no one sounds like they're coughing when they're vomiting. That is not what vomiting sounds like.
I'm a famously loud vomiter. Like I
would think, yeah.
There's a lot of sound involved, and that's for that reason I found that scene unbelievable. With
you're very tall, so it's a long, big trip. A lot of yards to be covered.
There's actually some stops involved. It's not an express.
Yeah, there are locks in the river.
Yeah.
you got to wait until some more ships show up because they're not going to fill up the lock just for you, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Come on, man. Come on.
You gotta pack a lunch.
Anywho, so that's the film. Did you like it, boys?
I love this film. I love this pace of film. This is not a pace of film that is really done anymore, and I really, I think maybe that is a pretty subjective matter of taste, but I like how it just tells its story in a very matter-of-fact way and doesn't try to unfold it at a clip to keep you interested. And there's some self-confidence in that I really like. And I also like that the movie is not a happy movie. It's not a movie about a struggle to overcome something that yields super enviably successful results. And I think that that's a real kind of story, like we gave it our best shot and it didn't work out. It's tough, but it's real. And,
but isn't that the happy ending of the film, that in failing to save their business, they actually achieved what they had set out to achieve, which is to make exactly the kind of night that they made for all of their lucky guests, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, and
that's what you should have told the bank loan guy. Like, look, right. I know you see what I'm doing here is a restaurant, but we're just trying to make one great night.
Yeah, why didn't they invite Paul to the dinner?
Yeah.
Then maybe he would have given them an extension on the loan.
That's the happy ending that I think you expect from a film with a title Big Night, Like they finally impress the guy. They get the big win in the end. Ben, when you saw this film for the very first time, how long did you hang on to the hope? Because seeing it last night, I hung on to the hope way into the movie, like all the way to the end, maybe into the next morning, like thinking eventually, like by virtue of when this film was made, we were going to get...
What a sweet man you are, Adam Pranica. What a sweet man.
The happy
Everybody
ending.
went home and told their friends about how great the food was, and that like people would start streaming in for lunch.
It's a Wonderful Life ending of like they open up the door after eating the omelet to open the next day, and there's like a lineup and the newspaper articles out there, and like it's changed everything.
I was 13 when this movie came out, and I saw it in the theater, and so I imagine that
you have to sneak into it.
It is weird. I don't know why the choice to make it an R-rated film was a little bit interesting, because it's really just only a little bit of language, and they could have just had them curse in Italian, and this could have been a PG.
Yeah, there wasn't even a booby in there.
No.
You
sell more tickets when it's R, right? Especially if you're an indie movie.
That's what they say, right?
I guess so, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly what my mindset was at the time, but I imagine that the happy ending, the bow tying up the film, would have been what I expected, given my age and incredible amount of naivete at the time.
Well, it could have been. I feel like if the film were made today as like a gritty fuck you to the audience in indie film, right? It could have ended a lot darker.
I mean, especially because Ian Holm is the heavy in this movie, and you know Ian Holm has that gear in him to not just be moody at a piano, but to be threatening and dark. But he doesn't go all the way into that gear.
He could have destroyed them. Just emotionally, it would have been, but it's the tiniest little bit of where he says, like, I know your brother is a genius. What kind of man are you?
Right.
He just digs it's just the tip of the knife,
Yeah.
And at the end, the brothers reconcile.
Did they set their own chef on fire and kick him out? Is that what happened to that guy?
Yeah, I think so. They tried to immolate a man.
Yeah.
Instead of fire him.
That's why Ian Holm is capable of that kind of threat, because of what they did to that one chef.
He woke up that morning and chose violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, kind of a weird accent from Ian Holm in this movie.
Oh yeah, well, he's not even from the Mediterranean basin. That guy, he's just he's just from Belgravia or something. Like he's from London.
Very weird cultural appropriation. Did not like.
So objectionable.
Ian Holm in olive face.
Oh no. Olive face is now going to be a thing. Olive face could be like the name of this podcast.
Oh man.
Which is untitled as of this recording.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's a bit of a trend among food podcasts. There's carb face. You could be olive face.
Because those things are very comparable. I upon rewatching the film, I was amazed by a lot of its technical achievements. Those one shots are unbelievable. The whole dinner thing it's just everything is so beautifully shot. The scene where Ian Holm lights a few pieces of paper on fire and they kind of alight like birds, and
is that how he set his chef on fire in his restaurant? Like an accident doing that trick?
And the chef float up into the air and you catch him in your hand.
That's beautiful. But like there's like there emits from the sort of people watching this like a really sincere like sound that is got to be like real. It's like that's not acting, that's like a real human reaction. And for it all to be on film the way it is and except for the eggs at the end, perfectly exposed, it's like, I don't, it's incredible. But at the same time, it's an opera and is very arch and broad in ways that bothered me this time around. Like, especially like the way those idiot Americans are painted in the restaurant in the beginning.
Yeah. Who's going to have the bravery to paint the Americans in a good light? Jeez.
That's what I'm here for.
You're right, Goose.
Yeah.
I'm a man of the people, God damn it. I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, yeah.
In the greatest Trek family of Trek recap podcasts, you boys bestow an honor called the Drunk Shimoda.
We do.
Which is sort of we won't explain the backstory. There's a whole wikia where you can read about all of the in-jokes or memes when did in-jokes get rebranded as memes? They're just in-jokes. All of the memes that are in greatest Trek family of podcasts, you can read about those on the internet. But Drunk Shimoda is the person who's just kind of having the most fun in a show or a film at any given time, or being wacky or something. I wonder if we couldn't. Is it the olive faced Shimoda?
Wow. Yeah, let's definitely call it that. Who's your olive face, Goose?
Oh, my olive face is Mark Anthony.
Yeah.
No doubt. Like, dude is just hanging out with his unbelievably glorious cheekbones, you know? The kind of cheekbones that, like, I wonder sometimes, like, I could have cheekbones that good. I've never been as lean as Mark Anthony, so who knows? They could be
He is
there.
a great singer, but olive face.
No, he is legit olive facing it in this film, and he is having a blast, just hanging out, watching all of the madness go by. And he's like, I think he's like legit. He's like a shop cat. Like they portray him as like
the dog. They never even talk to him. Like nobody tells him to do anything. It's never like, hey, go sweep up or.
Hey, here's a question: is he a slave?
Oh Jesus!
Whoa. Like, did they bring him over from the old country and then take his passport away?
Yeah. Jesus.
Pretty dark, huh?
Yeah, the stakes are the highest for him in this whole night.
Yeah. What the fuck, Secundo? Maybe it's good that Ian Holm ruined you.
Yeah, wither Cristiano at the end of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does he go and do?
This is the Marxist reading of this film that I was hoping for, is like, let's talk about what happens to the working people.
Do you have an olive Shimoda, Ben? Olive face Shimoda?
I suppose I'll give it to Secundo for just the the thing that was so remarkable to me about this man who carries all of this pressure on his shoulders, keeps it from all the people that he loves, is that he is also like chilling the most in this movie. Like, yes, Primo is in the kitchen all fucking day, and Secundo is like, hey, I'm gonna go test drive a Cadillac. I'm gonna go
after having sex with Isabella Rossellini, which happened like 10 hours after he was making out in the car with Minnie Driver.
He gets to do so many fun things despite all of the gloom and doom that he's carrying around with him. So in some ways, that's kind of aspirational to me. Like if I'm stressed out, I need to remind myself, hey, go test drive a Cadillac, dude.
Yeah, that's all you need to do.
The work is going to get done by Primo, not you.
And Cristiano, who will clean up after it.
Right.
And get no credit, unlike Primo, who will get all the credit.
It's a genius.
It's genius. Good system. Adam Pranica, do you have an olive face Shimoda?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of brought it up tangentially. It's Campbell Scott's Bob character, the car dealership guy.
Oh, yeah.
Who kind of parachutes into this film from a totally different movie, I feel like, and is a character from somewhere else, some other movie even.
He looks like he's coming in from That Thing You Do.
Yeah, and I don't know, there was like that quality about him of just being kind of a witness to things, yet still going to the party and enjoying it as much as anyone else. He
drives away in a Cadillac with one conscious woman and one unconscious woman, which is pretty fucking sinister.
Totally. Like his end of the night is wild. His beginning of the day is wild. He does not seem to be a very good car salesman, which I like, because especially after his character is introduced, you're like, all right, here comes the hard sell. Like Tucci cannot afford this car. And here comes this fucking asshole who's going to like break his heart by sitting him in the driver's seat. But no, that wasn't it at all. They just like go for a drive and bond as two people in crazy job situations. And I mean, you get a lot of him in the beginning and almost none of him in the end. But like my eye always found Campbell Scott in the frame because I was always interested in what he was doing. He was such an outsider to this whole thing. So I dug his participation in the story quite a bit.
I'll take it. He also had he had beautiful flowing hair and a big forehead, much like yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely saw myself in Campbell Scott, for sure. Also, the broken hand that he doesn't want to talk about.
Yeah, he has no memory of how he got that.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, if you like Star Trek, or if you don't, if you just like listening to two idiots have fun hangs, check out my dear friends, Adam Pranica, Benjamin R. Harrison, over on The Greatest Generation, where they are presently recapping Star Trek Voyager. And or you could go to their other podcast, which is Greatest Discovery, where they are recapping all of the new Trek that is coming out these days, of which there is so much.
And enjoy all of the original Adam Ragusea music on both of those shows. He created the theme songs for both of them.
Hot tracks.
Yeah, fire tracks.
Fire.
On the Greatest Trek subreddit recently, big thread about how if you haven't listened to the Janeway song on the Goose's SoundCloud, you're really missing out.
Oh, visionary work over on the SoundCloud. How has that guy not been courted by what remains of the major labels yet? All right, thank you, boys. This has been lovely, and perhaps we could do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Goose. We love you.
We'll be back anytime.
I love you, boys. That was fun. And that's it for episode 2 of the Ragusea Pod. Remember, if you are watching this on my main YouTube channel, please do me a solid and subscribe to the podcast on the podcast app of your choice. Just search Adam Ragusea Podcast. I doubt I will be cross-posting the episodes to my main YouTube channel for very much longer. So if you want to keep on listening, smash that subscribe button on a podcast app. Maybe we'll post the video version in a second YouTube channel that you could subscribe to. We'll see. Thanks for listening. End of show tagline still forthcoming. Talk to you next week.